Good evening, I am Jason B. De Los Santos, and I am the first reporter for this topic, why, what, and the impact of planning. So let us have first the lesson overview for this topic. We will have 5 questions that we need to answer in this lesson. So for the first one, is it necessary to plan? Second, why do we need to plan in the first place? Third, what are the basic ideas and concepts about planning? Fourth, how do we plan for today, tomorrow, and the future? And the fifth one, why do we need to change in planning? So the first question, is it necessary to plan? So plan is a very vital part of our reforms that we want to take. So to have change in our educational institution or educational system, we need to plan it out. So according to Ekumekinde and Akanbi 2010, for any reform to occur and endure in our educational system, it needs to be carefully and deliberately planned. So because planning helps us to determine the limitations and the scope of our the change that we want to pursue in our educational institution. And without change, we cannot improve or we cannot progress or develop along the way. So it's very important to plan. So next, the thing that the planners or educational leaders are most afraid of is those things that those things that are needed to accomplish first, like the paper documents and the research studies. So the problem with that is we try to think that we are crafting very ideal plans, but we fail to really implement it, execute it well. So it does not just end with the crafting or creating the creation part of the paper document, but it should we should make sure that it will be implemented in the future. So that's the thing. We usually stop after of crafting those ideal plans, but we fail to act it out. So that's the problem. Next, why do we need to plan in the first place? Because planning helps build better programs. So without planning, we cannot see any programs that would help our students to really improve themselves. We need to have planning for us to have quality instruction also. So planning helps many things. So planning helps also how and where to set priorities. So we have a lot of priorities in our educational institution, but the question is, what are those priorities that we should take first? So that's the thing. It helps us where to set priorities and how to set priorities and how to solve or how to do those priorities. Next, planning helps accomplish short, medium, and long range goals. So in planning, we usually put time frame in our targets for us to have a clear set of time that we should act the target out. So when we are planning, it's very the time is very important element in changing our educational institution or making reforms in our educational institution. Next, planning helps also reach agreement in the school community. It establishes the stakeholders, our the relationship between our stakeholders and our educational leaders. So because stakeholders are important also because they might help us achieve those targets that we want to achieve in the end. So by that we will have a a relationship between the school community, the stakeholders, and the educational leaders. So planning helps also build on the strong and successful parts of the program. So we can determine the strengths and weaknesses of the program, and if strength, we will try to improve it. We will try to strengthen it more, and those weaknesses we can try to avoid it along the way in implementation of the plan. Next, what are the basic ideas and concepts about planning? So planning has to do with change. When you plan, you are planning to change something. You're planning to have solutions about the problems. So when we have plan, we are trying to achieve change or reform. Next, planning is not an end by itself. It's just the first little step towards the achievement of that particular reform that we want in our educational institution. So planning also is not simply projections and not just avoiding risk. So along the way, we have a lot of risks that we will encounter. But the question is, what are those risks that we are willing to take? So that's the thing. So in planning, we can establish or we can lay out what are the risks that we are willing to take along the way. Next, planning clears the ground for establishing goals and objectives. So one of the vital parts of planning is those goals and objectives, since it sets out where will we gonna go along the way. What are where directions? So that's the thing in planning. It sets out the limitations and the scope of how we want to pursue change in our educational system or educational institution. Next, planning allows managers to take action since we have paper document that the managers or those educational leaders will create. So those plan that we have written in those papers that we accomplish in the first step. So we should be motivated. It will motivate those managers or those implementers to really take action since we can see the problems laid out in black and white. So that's the thing in planning. Planning also helps firm up person or a university to say no. So if it's outside the scope of the plan, so we can really say no. So it's not on the plan. So it might be in the future it will be included, but in this plan we should not pursue it since it's not included in our plan. So planning also means implementing, taking action, and making things happen. That's the thing that the planners, or especially in third world countries, forget. So we usually forget that ideal plans should be implemented, not displayed. So that's the problem when we plan because we are for ideal plans, we are for beautiful plans, but we forget to implement. Okay? Next, planning allows rational examination of alternatives and options. So it lays out our options, what to choose, or what are the options that are we willing to choose, are we willing to risk. So educational leaders can lay out those alternatives and options and what are the consequences and the strengths of those options. Now, for the next question, how do we plan for today, tomorrow, and the future? There are key aspects of planning. First, it is a dynamic process. It changes over time. So along the way, our plan might not be executed, or those steps that we laid out in our plan would not be executed. That's why we need to be flexible in our plans. That's why we need to lay out as many options as or alternatives as possible along the planning. Planning also, it's a preparatory step. It's just the first step towards reforms. Next, it sets off this. It's planning sets off decisions. So there are a lot of decisions that the educational leaders will try to decide on along the way when we trying to reform something in our educational institution. Next, it's action directed. So this vital part or vital step in planning is the one that we usually forget. Next, it sets directions. So, what are the directions that we are willing, or what are the path that we should take? So that's planning. And planning also is goal oriented and time bounded. As what I have said, there's a clear time frame on how to achieve or um, how to achieve those plans or those targets that we laid out in our plan. And next is it's cost effective and efficient. So we need to think if we plan, it should use less resources since our resources are limited, and it should be efficient. It should be quick. It should be immediate to aid those problems that we are trying to have solution in our plan. Next, how do we plan for today, tomorrow, and the future? According to Diaz, Giovanella, and Rocha de Sosa, for a successful plan to occur, okay, it should include the stakeholders by trying to explain to them the goals that you want to achieve in your plan. So that's the thing that you need to set things first. So you need to make the stakeholders understand the goals that you want to achieve for them to have a clear mind that these are the goals that we or these are the outcomes that we want to achieve at the end, and they can help you to achieve those things. Next, why do we need change in planning? Because educational planning assesses the institution's position in the present. So, what is the level of our institution? Are we improving? Are we stagnating? So that's the thing, or that's the questions that should be asked when we are planning. So we are aiming to improve or to develop our educational institution. That's why we need to assess ourselves. Next, planning should install monitoring and evaluation systems to ensure that plans are carried out. So that's the one thing that we usually also forget. We usually just create plans and we are not monitoring if it's already applied or implemented. So as we plan, we need to have or we need to install those monitoring and evaluation systems for us to know if the plan is being carried out and if the plan is successful or not. So if it's not successful, then we change the plan, we improve the plan, and we implement it again, and we need to evaluate it. So that's the thing. It's a continuous process, as what I have said earlier. So that's all for my topic. So my partner will continue the discussion for this topic, and these are my references. Thank you and good evening.